Let me paint the picture. You have your authority, your TWIC card, your SCAT code, and you're headed to the port to pick up your first import. You arrive at the gate terminal, you enter your container, and then the terminal asks, "What's your chassis number?" While you're sitting there trying to figure out what your chassis number is on a chassis that you don't have, you're burning fuel, and now that load that looked profitable is starting to cost you money. Hey fam, welcome back. Now before we get into it, let me tell you why I understand how confusing the chassis side of drayage can be. I operated both a drayage trucking company and freight brokerage for over 7 years, so I've dealt with chassis from both sides of the shipment. I've booked them, paid for them, billed customers for them, dealt with shortages, and learned some very expensive lessons along the way. It's real-world experience over here. And yes, this is my AI clone, but the experience is mine, the training is mine, and even the voice is mine. Using a clone just helps me create more training videos without doing the lights, camera, action routine every time. Now this is one of those beginner drayage mistakes that happens when carriers quote and accept a load before they fully understand the equipment side to drayage. So in this lesson, I want to break down what a chassis is, how chassis pools work, and what you need to verify before you say yes to a container move. Now the first thing you need to understand is that the container is not the trailer. The shipping container is just the box. It holds the freight, but it does not have wheels. And in order for trucks to move the box or container, it has to sit on a chassis. The chassis is the frame with the wheels, axles, and suspension, and it has a locking system to lock your box to the frame. So when people say you need a chassis, they are really saying you need the equipment that makes the container movable by a truck. Without the chassis, the container is not going anywhere. Now, some carriers own or lease their chassis, but many carriers, especially when they are first getting started, need to rent a chassis directly from an equipment provider or through a chassis pool. You may hear names like DCLI, Track, Milestone, or FlexiVan. These are all companies who own and manage chassis equipment in different areas of the country. Depending on the steamship line, the load may require equipment from a specific provider. For example, Ocean Network Express, or ONE, requires the carrier to use chassis from FlexiVan. If you rent from DCLI for an ONE container, DCLI will charge you a rental fee, and so will FlexiVan. This is why you can't just assume any available chassis will work for your container, unless you're bringing your own private chassis. So before you accept a load, you need to know what equipment is required and where that equipment is coming from. Now that we know we need a chassis to move the box, let's connect the chassis to your UIIA participation. Many carriers become active with the UIIA and assume that they are automatically approved with every container and chassis equipment provider out there. That's not quite how it works. Being active in the UIIA is definitely a part of the process, but each equipment provider has their own insurance requirements, and your trucking company still has to be approved by that specific provider. DCLI, Milestone, Track, all of them have their own insurance requirements that are specified through the UIIA. Once your insurance agent submits your coverage electronically to the UIIA, it's compared to those requirements. And if your insurance coverage meets the requirements of the equipment provider, you are automatically approved. But some equipment providers require additional documentation in order to be approved. So you may be active with the UIIA and approved with one provider, but not the other. In order to pull a chassis from DCLI, you have to be approved through the UIIA for DCLI. Some of the other chassis providers like Track and Milestone, it works the same way. So before you accept the load, make sure you're approved to grab a chassis from that equipment provider. Now, with that said, if you are leasing a chassis directly from the equipment provider, then you're good to go. The lease term is usually 1 month, 1 year, or even 5 years, depending on the chassis provider. Approval will come directly from them along with your UIIA participation. Now, those of you renting a chassis from the chassis pool will take a different route. You still need UIIA participation, but in addition, you will need to register with the chassis pool. What's a chassis pool? Great question. Equipment providers like DCLI and Track, they all provide chassis to the port authorities for use by motor carriers. So you can lease a chassis directly from them, or you can rent one from them through a chassis pool. And it's literally a pool of chassis. So if you can imagine, the chassis pool has chassis from many different providers. And as you can guess, the chassis in the pools are not always their best chassis. But motor carriers start out with daily rentals from the chassis pool. This is common and recommended when you're just getting into container hauling. Chassis pools are located at the rails, the ports, and some off-site terminals. If there are containers there will more than likely be chassis as well. Because remember, the boxes don't move without the wheels. As long as you are approved with at least one chassis provider through the UIIA, you can register with the chassis booking system to book a chassis from the pool. The main chassis booking system is called CCM Shipments. You register with them online as a motor carrier. They verify that you are approved with the UIIA with at least one chassis provider. Then they will provide access to the chassis booking system where you can book or reserve a chassis. I know that's a lot to unpack. I have a video on how to book a chassis on CCM Shipments, but what I want you to know is that you need UIIA approval with at least one chassis provider and be registered with CCM Shipments in order to book or reserve a chassis from the chassis pool. So before you say yes to a container move, there are a few questions you need answered. Is the container already on a chassis? Is the customer paying for the chassis? Are there chassis even available in the chassis pool? Is the equipment provider on my approved list with the UIIA? These are small questions that can prevent very expensive problems from happening down the line. Let me tell you about a mistake that we made early on in my business. We moved quite a few loads for a freight forwarder and billed for the chassis like normal. We submitted the invoices were paid, nobody questioned anything. Just another day, another dollar. Then about a month later, the forwarder realized they had already prepaid for the chassis through the ship line. So they paid us for the chassis and they paid the ship line for the same chassis. Do you know they came back and asked us to refund all of the chassis fees we had billed them? It was nearly 5 stacks we had to refund. Talk about an expensive lesson. I feel like I just saved you some coins right there. So the lesson is, we should have confirmed who was responsible for the chassis fees before we ever quoted the load. That one question could have prevented the whole issue that nearly shut down my brokerage. So do not assume the chassis is billable just because you are the one booking it. Okay, so let's bring it all together. The container is the box. The chassis gives it wheels. If you do not own your own chassis, you will probably be using equipment from a provider or from a chassis pool. But being active in the UIIA does not automatically give you access to every provider's equipment. You still need to confirm that your company is approved with that provider and be registered with the chassis pool. Ask the right questions. Don't assume chassis are automatically billable. The questions can save you from gate turnarounds, missed appointments, and billing disputes. Always check availability for the chassis because chassis pools do dry up. Before we go, I'm curious, are you planning to buy your own chassis or lease one, or maybe just rent from the chassis pool? Drop own, lease, or pool in the comments below. And if you're still not sure, just type not sure. Your comments help me decide what additional training I need to focus on next. In the next training, I want to show you the recommended order for completing your 5 steps to container hauling. That way you're not trying to do everything at once and running into roadblocks. And don't forget to take the free Drayage Readiness Assessment. It takes less than 5 minutes and it will show you if you're truly ready to start hauling containers or whether there is still a gap you need to close. Thanks for watching, be safe, and I'll see you in the next video.